I would like to remind you that for more Microsoft webcasts, you can go to microsoft.com/webcasts. And thank you again for joining us for today's webcast entitled Identity Lifecycle Manager 2, Part 1 of 3, Empowering Users with Self-Service Identity Management Solutions. Now it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Brian Brecken.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Brian Brecken. I am, as you heard before, a technical product manager working with the ILM team. As a technical product manager, I work in our marketing organization, and as a technical PM, I'm working very closely with the product group, designing and creating this product. This series of webcasts, which is, as you see, part 1 of 3, was previously delivered at IT Forum or TechEd in Europe just a few weeks ago. So you will see some naming and some distributional list names relating to actually the IT Forum event. The next in this series will be delivered in a couple of weeks. There are 3 series. The next one is around business policy, and the last one is more around extensibility and around provisioning. So today's talk is more around, it's a level 200 talk around how the end users will end up using Identity Lifecycle Manager in your environment. The other 2 scenarios, the other 2 webcasts will be more focused on what is happening behind the scene, how can we express policy, what are the different pieces of the technology that we can use to express more advanced scenarios and so on. Today is the 19th, as you see. The other ones are in the beginning of December. And so please join us for those 2. The best scenario, the best experience would be if you actually join all 3 to get the whole picture. And then the last piece is, after this, I will get some extra resources at the end, but right up, I would like to point out that the demos today are done on a VHD that is available for download. So Microsoft.com/ILM2, you can register and download to get the whole VHD for your own testing and evaluation later on. Let's get started. So today's agenda is basically a demo-heavy scenario-driven presentation. We'll start off with some background and some ideas of why we have done this product the way we have. What are the pains that we are trying to solve that customers told us about? We'll take a look at the overall architecture of ILM2 to understand what the actual building blocks are for building solutions. Then we'll actually take a look at some what we call real-world self-service scenarios, which is basically taking into account a user joining the company, logging on for the first time on her computer, joining a few distribution lists, getting settled into her job role, even going in and creating her own distribution list. To build a team, to build a project around her role in the company. We also look at things like self-service password reset, making sure that we understand how that would be done by an end user. We also end up at the end transitioning a user from one role to another using this technology as well, seeing how that can be done with the appropriate approvals and settings that is needed for that business process to happen. At the end, of course, we'll do a session summary and call out to get you guys that link to the ILM2 website, and also call out to get some reviews from you guys from this session. So, identity access management, what customers are asking about. This is not an exhaustive list of things that identity access management is trying to address, but some of these things are pretty basic features that we need to be able to create, provision users, provision more than just users. We need to be prepared to provision credentials. The credentials can be smart cards, can be certificates, can be usernames and IDs, Can even be one-time PIN passwords or one-time PIN solutions by using some of our partners. Updates to users, update to user profiles, update to passwords, and so on is also an important part of identity and access management. And that can be things like role changes, but it can also be just changing and updating your passwords. Requesting resource access, requesting membership in groups. I don't know exactly what everyone's scenario is around requesting access to a distribution list in their mail systems, but here at Microsoft we have something called our auto group, which enables us to actually go in and join distribution lists, discussion lists, and discussion groups on a self-service basis. It's a key cost saver for our own internal IT department. Going forward with retire user at the left corner, so even if we have users that are created, updated, one important part will also be to be deprovisioning identities. And deprovisioning can be when people are fired or quit the company, but it's also around what happens when you move or transition in a role, making sure that your new rights are given to you and your old rights are maybe revoked or changed somehow because of your role change. All of these three pieces are governed by a policy management solution. So customers want a policy management solution to do both authoring of the policies. So what are the rules that we have internally in the company when we do transition users? Should they lose their access, their credentials, or their entitlements and roles in the old systems, and how should they gain that in the new systems? Do we require approvals for joining groups? Do we require approvals for people in transitioning phases? And all those pieces are what customers want, in many cases, to be able to do without involving too much of IT, and definitely not developers in the process. So what we're seeing today, and I hope this is not the exact picture of everybody's scenarios and everybody's company, but today's state-of-the-art places burden on IT is the title of this slide. And I think that's the main part here, is that a lot of these things that we need to do that were pain points in the previous slides are today done using the help desk, using IT professionals, creating new groups in Exchange, creating new security groups for file access or for SharePoint access, and so on. A lot of these things need to happen with the use of our core IT professionals in this case. Developers in this scenario are burdened with having to do what you might see as simple tasks. So even the simplest workflow scenario or connecting to different systems can be a burden on developers today. On the information workers, the biggest burden for them is loss of productivity. So if I forget my password, there might be a period of hours, or at least minutes, at least maybe even days before I get a new password, get access to a new resource, and so on. So the biggest burden for the information worker is not getting the actual work done in a timely manner. So basically what we're looking at for our product is to move this around, so that what we have in developers down here, we want to move that up to IT professionals, so that what developers do today, we want to enable with using tools so that developers can really focus on creating complex business applications, or evolving the technology that's already in place and not doing the kind of simple tasks. What IT professionals do today, we want to make sure that the information workers can do with ILM2. So all these things around help desk, password reset, group joins should somehow be moved over, if requested for the company, over to the end users, or at least delegated end users in an organization. Here at Microsoft, we've done as part of this process, we've also looked at what does management, what does identity have to do with the overall security business, security scenarios in our customers. And recently, the identity and access team here at Microsoft joined forces with the security team, which is branded forefront in this slide. So this scenario is all around getting ways to get tools into customers, into production, into deployment, where the tools are well known. You can see the same tools, the same kind of user experiences. If it's IT pros, if it's end users, or even developers, we want the same tools and experiences across both security and identity. We feel that identity and security are closely related in many, many ways. So in doing these joint tools and joint development, we're looking at lowering cost of ownership, of course, by having a common platform, by having common implementations. Around improving protection is the process of managing action and processes, threats across different platforms and different, I wouldn't say platforms, but different solutions, such as antivirus, malware threat management, VPN access, and of course, all those are dependent on identities. So merging those two systems together is a good idea, we think, and you should see much more on that front going forward from us. So let's start to get into the actual topic of identity lifecycle manager in this case. So again, if your slide is blurry, please go to full screen. Some of these slides have small text. I apologize for that. ILM 2007, the product in market today, provides us with three basic core functionalities. It's the identity synchronization piece and user provisioning. So the identity synchronization and user provisioning are what has been around and known as MIS in the past. May of last year, we released the ILM 2007 release of the product, and with that, we also added certificate and smart card management into the product. So one product, one family, one licensing to actually do identity and the related features around credentials, certificates, smart cards that we feel are key to an identity management solution. We take all that we have in ILM 2007 and move that into what we call ILM2. So ILM2 is, as you've seen in the next slide, built on top of ILM 2007 investments. ILM2 is meant to add on features such as, which is grouped into the four buckets: user management, group management, credential, and policy management. Those are the four buckets that we will be discussing. But basically, it is around moving the experiences of the users into getting a portal, getting end user tools, getting IT pros, the appropriate tools to do workflows, to create policies. Basically, just adding on top of the platform all the capabilities that we need to complete this identity management solution, kind of. The design principles for ILM is what we thought about when we designed ILM2 as a product. The first one was around aligning experiences. I think the first bullet, put the right tools in the right hands, is what I talked about already, putting when it comes to IT pros, developers, and our end users. But it's really, really key, and we want to excel in that scenario and pointing to the last bucket, which is enhance existing investments. By putting the right tools in the right hands, we also want to make sure that the users recognize those tools as something that they've used before. So group management inside of Office, inside of a SharePoint portal, with a SharePoint-based portal, password reset, where the password reset hurts most, exactly at the log on prompt. That's where I realized that I forgot my password. So we're trying not to add a bunch of new tools on top of what our end users already know today. We also need to have a principle around policy management. All these things for workflow, for provisioning, for user synchronization across directories can't happen if you don't have a great policy engine in the center. So a policy engine which is designed to allow IT pros to create business processes that are reflected in how these things move around in the system. How do I allow users in a company to create distribution lists, security groups? How do I synchronize user from HR to AD, and also incorporating information from phone systems, for example? We need the policies in place to manage the attribute flows, the precedence of attributes, to make sure that these are the way that the business thinks they are, the business has decided they are. So basically building a policy tool is very crucial for the product. And the extensibility. I mean, we are using our own extensibility points when we create our API, when we create our tools in Office. We have already extensibility from our partners. We have the tools that partners such as Gemalto and Quest creating add-ons on top of the product for smart card and one-time PIN password, one-time password features. We have partners such as Omada that are creating plug-in modules already for the ILM platform to fill in features that they think we are lacking and so on. So it's a great extensible platform at the same time. Taking the 4 main features, just to point out a few things in each bucket before we head into what we're actually looking at today in more detail. So policy management, already mentioned that one. Highlight that it's a SharePoint-based scenario. It's a Windows Workflow Foundation-based system. So it's based on the standards that are in the platform today. We don't implement a different workflow solution. We use what's in there today. So developers that are well-known or aware of how to use those products will be able to use the workflows in ILM2 as well. Credential management, point out that we can do third-party certificate authorities, for example, an integrated self-service password reset feature so that you can register. I'll show you this in the demo, but it's basically register for password reset and then use those Q&A questions that we've set up to enable you to reset passwords. And this is not just change password. This is the scenario where you forgot your password and need to validate your identity using some other means, which is, in this case, we built it as a Q&A gate, questions and answer gate, but it can also be extended, and some of our partners are already looking at that to provide other means of other gates to plug into the system. And the last one is around group management and user management. All those are basically features of what we'll see in the demo. What we won't see today are the kind of automated codeless user provisioning. We'll cover that in our 2 later talks, our 2 later webcasts. But we will cover self-service password, self-service profile, and of course all the group management and Office integration. Okay, sorry about the slide here. I see just that it's cropped at the top. Identity Lifecycle Manager 2 architecture. Basically, if you take a look at this platform right here, this is our ILM 2007 synchronization engine, known as MIS earlier. It is still there. We still have the adapters to talk to different identities. We have over here, which is the CLM or certificate management features of the product. Again, those are intact. They're changed a little bit, but not a huge part of the investments in ILM2 has been put on changing, for example, the CLM pieces. That's something that we're doing for the next version of ILM2 as well. But there is a tight integration between ILM2 and CLM in the platform as well. So don't think that we haven't done anything. We've done a lot to enable the workflows in the rest of the product to actually work with certificate management as well. The ILM platform, the ILM2 platform is what we have in the middle section over here. So the middle section is where we have our ILM service, and the ILM service is basically a set of workflows and set of. This is where we design our policies. All requests that come into the service will basically go through the request processor at the first point and see, hey, what is this request? What does it have to do? And the requests that come in are through XML or web services. We'll have delegation and permission. Is this request valid? Is it approved? Can we do it? Does this request have access to the system overall? We have an authentication workflow, authorization workflow. The ILM service database in the middle is where we store our data around our roles, our policies, pretty much everything that we do in the ILM infrastructure, in the ILM solution is stored in the ILM service database. And then at the end, we have an action workflow. And I'll walk through during the demos. I'm going to walk through how these interact with what you see on screen. So I'm not going to go through in detail right now what each piece does in this scenario. On top of the actual ILM service, we have a set of experiences, which is seen as clients. It's the Outlook client, which is the plug-in inside of Outlook to do group management, but also to be part of approvals and approval workflows inside of the Outlook client as well. The ILM portal, I'll show you that one in a minute as well. That's basically a SharePoint-based portal to do the management tool and also an end-user tool. So it's the same portal based on a role-based portal. It changes its views, it changes its capabilities based on who logs on to it. Windows integration is through the credential management with password reset. And then, of course, all the custom clients that could be built on top of this solution itself. Let's take a look at a few of these self-service scenarios that we have as a demo to walk you through what the capabilities of ILM2 is. First one is what we call the first day of work. First day of work is Melissa Myers, a new employee. She starts her first day of work, and she needs to get into her mailbox to join some DLs, to view welcome emails, and so on. Experience today for this could be that it might take several weeks to get access because of disjoint systems. There's one HR system where the user is created. There's a mail system for mailboxes. There's a phone system for phones. There is a Active Directory, for example, for my user identities. And all these can be loosely coupled or not coupled at all in the scenarios where we see in customer scenarios today. Basically what's happened in this demo is that Melissa has been provisioned into the company as a new employee. She's been given an account through HR. She has a role of an analyst in the finance department, and she has been provisioned the right set of permissions, a set of entitlements, so to say, in the systems that are connected to ILM. And the connections in ILM are using management agents from the synchronization engine. So any user that comes in from HR, the HR feed will come in through a connector. That feed will go through our policy engine, and the policy engine will apply the rules necessary to actually do the provisioning of this user account. The provisioning will happen based on, as I said, policies, and then the synchronization engine will push those changes out to the connected directories. In this case, the user has been created in an HR system and has been pushed into a solution in AD and given account in Exchange, for example. So let's look at the scenario. I just want to switch back to my demo machine. There it is. See, sorry about the black box. It will disappear in just a second. So basically, I have my demo machine set up in a virtual environment. So I'm going to log on as a user called Melissa Myers. Melissa Myers, as I said, this is her first time to log on to this PC. So the first thing you'll see when the system loads is that it will pop up a password registration page. On this registration can be, I can actually click cancel here, and an IT admin can actually configure this so that if the user clicks cancel too many times, they will be locked out of the self-service password reset features. This self-service password reset is created through a number of questions. So the IT pro or policy responsible for password reset has gone into the ILM portal and created the questions that are being asked from the actual user. It will come up here in just a second. There we go. So my favorite identity management product. These are 3 questions. This is, of course, totally customizable. I'm going to do the obvious answers here. ILM, IT Forum, Toyota maybe, or some other car, Volvo. I'm Swedish, so I should maybe have put Volvo instead. So I'm answering 3 questions here. This could be 10 questions, of course. And then it's up to the IT pro again, or to the policy to decide how these questions are then used when resetting the password. I'll show you that later on, but you can then pick 2 questions or 3 questions. That all depends on what the policy is in your company, so to say. Melissa opens her email in this case. She's received some emails from buddies at work that are welcoming her to Litware, for example. This is her manager. Welcome to the team. She's up and running. She's been giving access to the codeless or to the automatic provisioning process to some applications down here. Membership and appropriate distribution list. So if I open up Melissa's account, look at member of, I can see that she is a member of the finance full-time employees. She's been given access to some applications through a distribution list. She's been given access to something called Litware IT Forum attendees. And that one is actually something that was in her mailbox as well. She noticed that Brian Perry has discussed with her that she will be responsible for sending people to this event or whatever project this could be. And he's actually given her capability of managing this group as well. So looking at that group in the address book, so the group right now just contains two users. It's a basic group. There's nothing special to it in AD or in Exchange. But what this group actually has is it has an approval workflow connected to it. So anybody that's trying to join this group will need approval from Melissa in this case, because Brian has given her that ownership on this group. Another mail that came in was from Glenn Perry. Hi Melissa, I heard you good golf player. We have a golf team here at the company, and I'd like you to join the distribution list. This is an example of how she would open the email, join the distribution list, which would be just as simple as clicking join group. So when I click join group, a special form in Outlook opens up, which will add the group that was on the CC list to the join list. I can also go in and add more groups that I want to join. But basically this is joining Melissa Myers to the Litware Golf Club group. sending that off as an email to Exchange 2007. Our ILM2 service listens on that mailbox, picks that up, and processes the request accordingly, according to the policies that are in place in the system. So in this case, Literary Golf Club is just a group that accepts members. Anybody that can join that group will be accepted into the group. And let's see if I actually have that user, if it's fast enough. Now it's not fast enough, but she will be joined to this group in a few minutes. There's a process in the background going on right now. The other thing that was in Brian's kind of welcoming email was that she could manage her own groups. She could look at the actual identity management portal. That's the application that fires up and shows her what our identity management solution is. In this case, it's a user, Melissa Myers as well, that is opening the portal as an end user. So on the left-hand side, you only have the appropriate features that are appropriate for an end user. If I was an administrator, I would see things in here such as administration of policies, workflows, and other features in this. We'll go through that, as I said, in later webcasts. Let's take a look at what we have in this demo so that you understand who the users are, what kind of user we have looking at. So there are three users. Well, IS kicks off as just-in-time execution. There are three users that we'll be using in this demonstration or this talk. It's Glenn Perry. He's an intern in the finance department. He's part of the finance department, but not a full-time employee, pretty much. We've already talked about Melissa Myers, who's just been hired. And we'll also take a look at Ted Smith. He's the HR generalist looking after the accounts for the finance department, pretty much. In distribution lists, we have a list of DLs that are mixture of what we call dynamic groups and static groups. I will go through what a dynamic group is later on, but basically it's a group that looks at as an attribute or something on the users and adds them to that distribution list automatically. In this scenario, we actually looked at the Literary IT Forum attendees, or we talked about that as a group that requires approval. So I want to look at that one. This one, I just want to look at the policies here. So under policies, it just says owner approval. And the owner is in this case, Melissa Myers. So anybody that joins this group needs approval from Melissa to join the group. Otherwise, there are name groups or what's called dynamic or calculated groups, and I'll create one a little bit later on for you. Explain what it is. So I'm going to switch user, and then I want to go back to my presentation, just talk briefly about what actually happened in that demo. So back to where we were. So the first day of work is basically around, it is around having, see if I get filled up. There we go. There we go. First day of work is using the directories at the bottom, which is identity, which is AD in this case. It uses synchronization server to actually synchronize the user membership. I'll show you how she's joined to that group, that she joined the golf group, for example, a little bit later. Everything that we saw around the policies, the DLs that were created, all that is stored in the ILM service database. We kicked off an authentication workflow when we did the credential management, when we actually registered for password reset. we had to kick off an authentication workflow to register for that for the password reset. So the Q&A features that came up is a workflow in the system that takes those answers, pushes those into the database, protects it so that the only person that can read them is actually the user that entered them in this case. And of course, the ILM portal was what we saw as well, connecting to the ILM service database, the whole ILM service really, to request access. So when we had logged on as a user in the ILM portal, it goes through the request processor and sees, hey, by the way, delegation and permission kicks in as well, because I can only view certain pieces of the portal and not everything in the portal. Let's move on to the next scenario, kind of follow up on that one. Now that Melissa Myers is into her job, she needs to also join some groups or look at how to manage approvals in Outlook and in the portal when others join her groups, for example. So today, that would probably be, I just joined the group, the golfing group in the demo, and think about that, how that could have been done through a help desk call, trying to figure out who the owner of that group is, making, can I join this group or not, add me to the group, and so on. I'll do something here, which is Glenn Perry is joining the Litware IT forum group that Melissa owns, and she needs to approve access to that group or membership to that group as well. Dynamic group membership is probably not available to most customers out there today because of what dynamic group really means. There are some features in Outlook and Exchange 2007 that can enable dynamic groups, but nothing based on policies. It's just a way of looking at attributes and then add them to groups. No approvals and so on around it. So let's move over to the demo again. This time I want to log on as Glenn Perry, just to join a group to fire off that workflow, fire off that approval workflow for the ILM IT forum attendee group. So Glenn could do this either through the portal by going to distribution lists over here, or doing it through the Outlook interface. While that one loads, I'll go back to the Outlook interface. So doing it through Outlook interface, I did it by clicking on a group when I was logged on as Melissa, but now as Glenn, he doesn't have an email. He just knows that he's been given the information that, hey, do you want to join that IT forum team? Try to join this DL, this group, and then see if you get approved to do that, or approved to go, pretty much. So join group, and join Glenn Perry. I list, add my little IT forum attendees group. I click send. And this could just as well be done, well, that one is processing. This could just as well be done through clicking IT forum and add member, or clicking join in this case. So join will join me. Add member is a possibility for me to add other members to a group. I can do that through the ILM or the Outlook interface as well. That one processing, that one is sent off to the ILM service. So let's check on Melissa and see how this email request has flowed through the system. So connected, send and receive. I should be getting an email from Melissa regarding an approval. And yes, so the approval scenario is, again, an extension to Outlook. If you don't have Outlook 2007, this would be just fine to do in the portal. I'll do that in the last exercise. So all the approvals, if this would not have been an Outlook 2007 mailbox, this would just be an email with a link back to the portal to do the approve or reject features. So in this case, Glenn Perry would like to add Glenn Perry to list from IT Forum attendees. And here's a button at the top. I can do them from there, or I can right-click and do approve, reject, or yeah, you can see different ways of doing it. So basically, approve that request. Again, it's sent as an email. So if Melissa would have synced her mailbox and then gone up on an airplane or been offline somewhere, she can handle all these approvals and reject offline in an offline scenario as well. And even joining groups in an offline scenario is fine. These are just emails. Of course, you won't be joined until you actually sync up your email inbox with Exchange and send all those requests in. I'll take a look at that one just in a second. So Melissa thinks this is a great scenario. She realizes that there is a distribution list that's not there today, which is the all finance. The only distribution list that we actually have in the system today are finance full-timers and finance interns. So Melissa goes ahead, clicks new, wants to create a totally new group. Let's call it all in finance. And then we do a selection of members. So named is just a group where somebody has to be added or somebody has to ask to be joined. A manager group is a calculated group based on manager attributes in ILM. So that can be you can create a group which includes a manager and everyone underneath that person. It could be manager, managers, and all direct reports in an organization, depending on which manager you would choose in this case. I'll pick a calculated group so that I can define what the attribute is. The manager group is basically a calculated group based on the attribute manager, nothing else. Next, I have a picker here. So select people that match all of the following conditions, and I can go in and check all or any to do a rather detailed, very detailed dynamic group. If you're in this group and not in that project, if you're in this group and part of another project and so on, just if and you can create these scenarios. I'll put department. I'll click finance, and all those attributes are actually in my ILM database and are attributes that can also be synchronized out to Active Directory, for example. So I click View Members here. I should be getting a few members, 4 members that will be member of this group when it is created. So basically, View Members is firing off that request to the ILM service, asking her, so if I would create this group, what would it look like? What would the members be? Put an expiration time on groups so that it actually expires at a certain date. I will make this a little bit prettier in the final release, but it's basically a date. Put my ownership. I put any owner. The owner can be a distribution list or some other owner. As you saw there, the actual user that creates this group will become the owner automatically. So while that one submits, let's go back to that little request that came in about Glenn Perry. So when I, as Melissa Myers, approve Glenn Perry's request, I receive an email notification back from the ILM service. And these notifications are customizable to your needs, but basically it details the request of what has happened. In this case, to the group Litfirm Forum attendees, I've added the member Glenn Perry. That's basically what the email and the request says. Cool. Go back to the The slide. The only big difference here really is that now we also introduce the authorization workflow when Melissa approved the user the addition of Glenn to this group. We actually fired off a authorization workflow as well. We synchronized our new group that we just created, the all finance group, out to our email system, which in this case is actually Active Directory as well. But it actually creates the mailbox in Exchange as well via the synchronization engine. The last scenario that we want to take a look at is the employee transition scenario. So employee transition is somebody changing roles, moving roles in a company. Changing roles in a company can be strange, can be a tedious process of actually removing people from roles or rights they had before, adding them to different new applications, for example. By using technologies that you've seen a little bit about right now around dynamic groups, for example. So if I would be creating dynamic groups in ILM to do memberships in groups that have access to an application. So I created a dynamic group called HR or sales application. So everybody in sales will be members of that group. So when a user is deprovisioned or moved out of that department, he would get automatically deprovisioned or removed from that group because he no longer falls into that dynamic definition of department equals sales. The same thing if we move somebody into sales, they will be automatically added to that group. And all this is happening on ILM. It's not happening in AD or in the directory. It's happening in ILM. The calculation is happening there, and then it pushes out to the connected directories such as AD and Exchange in this case. So in this demo, I'm doing a transition of Glenn. He's been doing great in his job, so he's actually promoted from an intern to an analyst, and he's also given a full-time position in this company. So let's log on as Ted, the HR generalist that I introduced earlier. So Ted Smith. Now we're doing something that might not be the most common feature of ILM, which is using ILM as an HR system. It can be done in a way that you decide what attributes users, or in this case somebody that you delegate it to, is allowed to change. This would of course just as well be done in a real HR system, SAP or whatever HR system that you have. Connect that through the synchronization engine and get that flow into the process and authorization and authentication workflows that we talked about earlier. But basically here I'm going through Glenn Perry, opening up Glenn Perry. This UI can be customized so that I can remove fields or gray out fields that I don't have access to. This HR person has access to all of these attributes. I'll change into analyst. I also go into work info and change into a full-time employee. So you can have drop-down lists, or you can have type. You can actually have possibility to type information as well. Okay, submit. And since this is a move between different organizations, the company has set up a policy again that requires even this to be approval only. So for this change to happen, to move somebody from full-time intern to full-time employee, their manager has to approve the process. And Glenn's manager is our friend Melissa. Sorry about all the hops back and forth, but it's hard to do demos with identity management without switching identities. So here's the new request. It's pending approval. Ted Smith requesting regarding Glenn Perry. I want to change this role from intern to become full-time employee and analyst. And of course, I'm going to approve that one. See what's going on there. While that is actually processing in the background, we will be able to show this rather fast around what happens to Glenn Perry in this group. He's still all finance. He's still just in finance interns in this case. He's not in the finance full-timers, not yet, but he will be there in just a few seconds, maybe a minute or two. All requests can also be done through the portal. So if I would have done this request through the portal, I'll click my approve request. Now I don't have anything in here, but basically I would click the link and say approve or reject in this case as well. If I'm a heavy approver, if I have a lot to do, I can search my requests. I can search them from all pending and all completed and what has happened in the last few days and so on. So let's see if something has happened. We have received an email from the ILM service that is emailed to full-time employees for this company, welcoming Glenn Perry as an analyst, not an intern anymore, to the company. There's a update to this request, which is the completed request. This is just a notification from the ILM service to the approver that it has gone through. And if I look at Glenn Perry's group in here, let's see if he's out of all groups. He's actually joined full-timers. He's not yet out of interns, but it will happen consequently in the next synchronization run in this case. And then he will be out of that group and only be part of the correct groups that he should be a part of in this case. See down here, he's also part of the IT forum attendees that he had tried to join earlier and that Melissa approved in the earlier demonstrations. Okay. Let's go back to the slides and do a few short remarks in the end. Employee transition with regards to those pieces. Employee transition is, again, there you have the addition of an action workflow so that when he actually is transitioned between two groups, you need an action workflow to fire and deprovisioning out of groups and provisioning into new groups and so on. So there has to be what's called an action workflow in a process like this. The last short demo is basically a demo where we look at the self-service password reset features. So let's get back. I forgot to log off. So my PC locked up here. Switch user. So if I log on as Melissa with the wrong password, she's been out having fun. She's forgot her password after her vacation, or any scenario that you could really think about here. Clicking reset password will prompt me for those questions that I answered earlier. This time I only get prompted for 2 questions. So favorite conference, I put IT Forum, and I think I put Toyota as the favorite brand of car. I'll click next. I get my prompt to do a password, new password. I can actually add some text here which describes the password policy in the company if that is appropriate. Some companies don't do that, but I think that at least there's possibility. And when I click reset here, it goes back to the ILM service. It goes back to AD to validate that the password that I just entered is okay for complexity reasons, for history, and complies with the policy overall in Active Directory. And yes, I've managed to change my password, and I'm very sorry, but you just have to trust me that I'm typing the new password when I log in this case. So what that case, that scenario would probably take a few hours or at least a few phone calls to get settled with a new password, get it out through text mail or text messages on your phone, through help desk calls, or some custom application that you add on top of Windows, which would allow you to do password reset through a portal of some kind where you need to go to a internet cafe or a password reset station at work to do a password reset feature. By integrating this into the logon prompt, we're able to do it quickly. User gets a new password in a matter of seconds or at least minutes in this case. The easiest one is using the same authentication workflow that we used earlier, but in this case, in this time, it's kind of turn around instead of registering and actually authenticating the user through that workflow. Running out of time a little bit here, so I want to go on and just wrap up a few things before I take some of these questions that are in the Q&A gate. So all things that I've shown today are part of the platform and part of the ILM2 solution. And able to do all the things that I've done today, you need the on the client side, you do need the Office Systems 2007 or Outlook 2007. If you don't have Outlook 2007, you will get the experience of an email sent to you, and then you get a link back to a portal. Same thing with the support with the Exchange Server 2007 at the bottom. That one is also only required for that ILM service account to be an Exchange 2007 account to be able to receive these specially crafted emails from Outlook 2007 with the request to join groups, with the approvals, and so on. If you don't have the ILM service mailbox on an Exchange 2007 server, it won't be able to recognize, the ILM service won't be able to process those requests coming in through email. Otherwise, it's a 64-bit only solution. It will require SQL Server 2008. We depend and heavily use performance increase features in SQL 2008. It's SharePoint Services 3, or SP1 as well, but basically SharePoint solution. On the client, we do support XP and Windows Vista, both for the password reset features in the UI. Of course, in XP it would look a little bit different, but it's the same experience. And also, that is also required for the Office integration pieces. So if you like what you saw now and want to try it out, the easiest way is, as I said earlier, to go and download the pre-configured virtual machine. Or if you want to install everything by yourself, the actual ILM2 release candidate bits are available through ILM2 website as well. So this is that website, and download the VHD. It's the easiest way to do it. Schedule. We released the RC at IT Forum Tech Ed Barcelona in first week of November. We are RTMing the product the first quarter of next year, with general availability a few weeks after that, which means we have to press DVDs and make it available and create all the features around it. So springtime, it's the time for RTM, for ILM2. The summary, what we've seen here today has been focused on the user side of ILM. I did not go through the policies and how to set these up. We'll do that in later talks. It is a tool where we can empower users to take part in the identity management process, either through the integration of Office and Windows or through a commonly used portal experience, a portal experience which is delegated down and into role-based portal pretty much, so that you can define exactly what every user will have access to in the portal. You will get should be getting a higher security and compliance through the possibility of actually having users deprovisioned and provisioned in and out of target systems automatically, based on these dynamic groups, based on the policies that you create in ILM2. And then we get some Q&A. Let's see if we have some questions. What are your plans for localizing ILM2 into other languages? So we are right now in the RC timeframe. We have already released Japanese and German. There will be 8 or 9 new languages, the same languages that we had for ILM 2007. The certificate management pieces will also be available for ILM2. We're also looking at further localizing more languages, especially for the end user interfaces, such as the portal and the Office integration pieces.
Hi, Brian. If I could just interrupt for a second.
Yep.
If you're not planning to go back to any slides, I'd like to move to the survey slide while you answer questions.
Absolutely.
So if anybody else has questions, now's a good time to submit them by clicking the Q&A pane and typing in your question. And I'm going to go to a survey slide. If you could please take a moment to fill out the survey. It should come up in just a moment. All you need to do is just click directly on the screen. You probably registered online, so click there. But if you registered a different method, then click on the other link. And it should just take a few minutes to fill out the survey, and it really helps us with feedback to not only improve live meeting, but to give Brian feedback on his webcast, and it just helps everyone. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to you to answer the questions.
Thank you. And I promise next time I won't say the word basically. I did that a few times today. I got a new question here. Would ILM fit in a scenario where external user requests access to several applications in the organization and the approvers are internal users? Yes, it's a scenario. So the scenario for external users to get access to the request to the actual portal would be possible to just publish the portal. You would have to set the rights of the users. What is critical, though, is that anybody that accesses the portal needs to have an Active Directory account. So if the users are, in this case, only kept in a CRM system, they need to also be synchronized into the Active Directory to get their user account, so that we can give them rights based on their identities in this case. We can find more configuration about configuring. Through our ILM2 website on Microsoft.com, you will find a link to our technical library, TechNet library. It's technet.microsoft.com/ILM. You will see guidelines and walkthroughs and links to our online documentation as well about how to configure all this. Are there any plans to implement a new user password initialization page? I I think we have to take that one offline. I really don't understand the scenario on that one. About what size organization is this intended to be used by? Our goal here at Microsoft is to have this deployed internally at Microsoft, which includes roughly around 100,000 users and 400,000 groups or something like that, or 250,000 groups at least. So it's designed to be a large implementation. We are heading in a good direction on those pieces as well. But at least it's a tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of users organizations where this is designed to be used. When I install, it seems to be a need that I have to have SharePoint on the server. Yes, SharePoint is required on the server. You can direct it to your own SharePoint environment that you have already. You just have to know the SharePoint site when you install it. We will also support. We're actually looking at supporting also MOS, or the Office SharePoint Server installation as well, to get that onto those environments as well. Can I provision user from OpenLDAP to Windows using ILM2? Yes, you can. OpenLDAP or any other kind of directory solution would be connected through what's called management agents in the synchronization service. So you would create a management agent in the sync service, connect that to that directory, and then you can read and write to that directory based on the policies that you set up and the attribute flows and so on. We will go through more of that in part 3 of this series. Not exactly OpenLDAP, but connecting to different directories and how provisioning and how all that works. One great thing that we have in ILM2 is what we call codeless provisioning, so that you will do attribute flow, modifying attributes, modifying features in how you synchronize between directories through the portal and not through code as we've done in previous versions of ILM and MIS. So, don't have any new questions coming in. Okay, there's one question on that in user, last one. Can I populate answers in the password reset registration pages? And at this time, no, we're not planning on allowing you to pre-populate those answers from well-known facts. It's something that you have to ask the user to actually input that information.
Can you take a look at the one by Razvan? I think it was changed a little bit. One at the top.
Now my client. How customizable is ILM2? The UI is very customizable. You can change the UI, of course, graphic pictures and so on, and also change the schema of what you actually work with, what kind of objects you work with. Out of the box, you have users and groups and so on, but we'll also do a look at in part 3 of these sessions around how you can extend it to use computers, for example. And then if you do computers, you need to customize the forms in the UI to include those new attributes and those new fields that are available for users. So you can do a lot of things when it comes to customization, yes. And if not, it's not enough. The APIs are there. We have the SDK published, and it's a way to actually look at maybe I should just build my own set of tools for special application and use the portal for basic features. That might be an idea as well. Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you, everyone. Thank you. And I hope to see everyone back in a couple of weeks when we do part 2.
Thank you, Brian. I just want to let everyone know to be on the lookout in your inbox tomorrow for an email with information about viewing this webcast on demand. And this email will also include a link to a downloadable PowerPoint of today's webcast. So if there are no more questions, we will stick around for a few minutes in case you come up with something, and we will answer it via text, or Brian will. And well, with that, I'd just like to thank everyone for attending today's webcast, and thank you, Brian, for a great presentation. Everyone, you may now disconnect from the audio portion of today's conference.